Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode.
It's an outlet for my creativity. That's the thing that makes it the funnest for me, is to be able to create something that I'm passionate about.
Welcome to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast where we discuss all things hospitality, hotels, and business. You can find us online at slicktalkthepodcast.com and on every podcast listening platform.
What's up, all my Slick Talkers? You are listening to the one and only Hostfully highlight series here on Slick Talk. This means every Friday I have partnered up with my friends at Hostfully to interview their amazing property managers around the world to see what they're doing, how they used this time during the COVID-19 pandemic in order to optimize the tools that are currently already in their toolbox, like Hostfully themselves. You're listening to the Hostfully highlight series. Now, onto the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and today is a really exciting episode. We have a destinationaire in our midst. We have Toby Friesen, who is the founder of Beach House Wa in Long Beach, Washington. I'm super excited. He's just in pretty much my backyard, and we really connected on Instagram just because he's got amazing, beautiful properties. He is very attentive to the attention to detail and the customer service. So after we've had a few conversations and had many, conversations back and forth, I would say it was just been an easy idea to just be like, all right, let's get Toby on the show. So Toby, my man, welcome to Slick Talk. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing great. Just balancing all the different things I have going on.
Well, you have a unique story, and I think it's really cool to be able to highlight, because you're not just a property manager, but you're actually the owner of these homes, and you've actually do a lot of the work and the renovations and the creativity behind it, like you said. So I really wanted to start in, what is the leading moment, the beginning of your journey where you started getting into vacation rentals and creating these amazing experiences and destinations for your guests?
Well, I had always wanted to do a vacation rental. When I went on vacations as a kid, it wasn't very often, but when we did, we would go stay at some homes in Lincoln City, and it was in this little center that kind of supported the arts. My dad's a jazz musician, and so he got to go there at a special rate, and so we'd go to these homes, and we didn't know anything about expectations that people have nowadays, like clean homes and matching linens. We were just happy to be at a house. It was just like, wow, this is great. We'd run in there, we'd go through the drawers, oh, what cool thing does this place have? And I just remember loving that so much. And so I was thinking, I would love to do that and have, a place to take my kids to the beach, and, then also hopefully be able to make some money to pay for it. Since I was a single dad of 3 small kids, I was working for myself, and making ends meet, but I didn't have exactly a lot of income to spread around. So it's I'm handy, I knew I could do a lot of the fix up myself. So let me just find a place that needs some work, fix it up, and I can go there with my kids, and then when we're not there, rent it out. That was the idea. But I looked for 6 years. I couldn't find anything that matched what I wanted. And I'm a pretty financially conservative person. So, I'm on the internet, kind of looking at other homes that are doing this and seeing how much they rent for and how full their calendars are. And I'm looking at these homes much nicer than what I'm able to afford. And they're not doing that great. And I'm like, I don't want to jump into something, I can't afford a second home. I can barely afford my first home. I'm not going to do this unless I feel good about this house. I got to find the right one. So I looked for 6 years, and then there it was. Boom. It was just like Shangri-La. Oh, it was just like this moment. I was like, oh yes, this is it. This is the home. And I just knew it. So I called my realtor. I'm like, I found the home. Let's go down there. I want to see it. Drive down to Long Beach. The realtor in town who's supposed to meet us decided to go out of town without telling us. We'd made an appointment, didn't let anyone in her business know, and she took the only key. So I was like, I'm looking around the property. I'm like, yes, this is it. And so I'm like, I am not leaving. I am making an offer today, but I got to look inside. So I climb up on the balcony, and one of the sliding doors is open. So I'm like, walking through the house, and the more I see, the more excited I am. Like, the house needs so much work, but that's fine. That's all stuff that I could do. It's all in my wheelhouse. But the bones, like what I needed to be there, was all there. And so made an offer. The people accepted, and then I discovered a little what it's like to build in a small town. I went through 6 months of just pain. That's the only way to describe it. It was very painful. Like, and the process of buying this house was so convoluted, like, because it was being remodeled by someone who had cancer. And then unfortunately, the cancer took him before he was able to finish, and his kids were in another state. And so everyone's walking through this house and no one's buying it because every room is undone. And like, the master bathroom was like studs and plywood, right? But, I knew what I could make it. I knew what it was worth, but the assessor didn't. And so he assessed it at a lower value than what I had offered had been accepted. And it was a really good deal at that. So I was really surprised the assessor wouldn't do that. So I can't get a loan from the bank, obviously. So I told the people, listen, I will go in and fix it up so that it will assess at the value. And just give me a certain amount of time. They're like, okay. So you can imagine the level of stress as, all these people are supposed to do work, at a certain amount of time. Like, everything that could go wrong went wrong. Like, the guy who's doing the tile work had to get his foot amputated. I had people showing up and like putting wrong materials down, or just doing the job altogether incorrectly, and had to come and tear it out. And I'm doing this, during the weekends in between work. And wow, that was the start of my journey, and it was a bumpy start. I got to tell you, it was not easy. And then I wanted to outfit the house, obviously, with all the stuff that my family would want. And everyone was telling me, like, why are you putting all this stuff in a vacation rental? It's just a vacation rental. Like, why are you putting all this nice stuff? And I'm like, well, because that's what I would want. If I'm coming here with my kids, I would love to have this here. And so that's how I started outfitting it. I outfitted it for like the dream place that I would want to take my kids. And so when I put it on the market and people started coming, I thought, maybe I can make this profitable in a couple of years. Maybe I can. No, and it was almost like the first couple of months. I don't think I ever didn't pay for itself, except for 1 month in like 5 years. It really just took off immediately. And that was when I was like, I think maybe I got something here. Like, this might be a little more than I thought. And that just kind of started my journey.
Wow, that's incredible. And I know exactly what you mean by construction in a small town, because we both worked, and I worked in Seaside, just a little coastal town, bridge, drive across a bridge over, and the workforce. And I think this is similar in any, small town, small city, especially coastal. The workforce usually isn't the best because it's very hard to find. And then when it is hard to find, the prices go up. And then when the prices go up, people decide to not show up, or to do half the work for double the rate. So Yeah, I understand that that struggle and that pain. But let's jump back into, I love how you just said it started with an idea, and this is like what makes me so excited about your story, because it started with an idea that took 6 years to actually execute on. And
Yeah.
that's where, like, you can tell, I think, when a lot of people get into this space, when the idea doesn't come into fruition within the first 6 months, sometimes they immediately get frustrated or give up or whatever. But it shows that when you actually really do want something, it's gonna continue. You're gonna continue to go for it and make it happen, whether it's 6 months, 6 years, 6 weeks, 6 days, from the time that you set out on that adventure. So I think that's really cool. But you were. Let's talk about how many properties you have now. You have that one for sure.
Yes, I have the one that I was just describing, which actually I just did a major remodel on. And that was kind of an impromptu remodel, actually, its own story. But yes, I have that property. I have one the next street over that I actually designed and built. And then one in front of that, which I hadn't planned on acquiring, but it kind of happened. It was an interesting organic purchase. And so I have 3 properties that I'm renting full time. And then I have property adjoining the first one that I purchased, that I have developed, and I'm building 2 cabins on right now, with one of them hopefully ready by summer.
That's awesome. So you are doing this full time, on top of working a full-time job, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I have 2 jobs here in Vancouver that I work full time, and then I do all this other stuff on the side, so to speak.
Wow.
But yes, it is basically a full-time job.
Yeah, it is. I know exactly this is a full-time job, and I only have 1 property right now, and you have 3, soon to be 5. It's pretty incredible. And can you, for the audience that's listening, can you describe the destination itself, Long Beach, Washington? What drives people there? What's the city like? What's the coast like? Especially in the low season, the high season. Like, can you give us a picture of what this destination is? And for any listeners, to just side note here, you need to check out his Instagram page, because the pictures are just beautiful of all the properties that you're doing. I love the before and afters, the continued updates of the construction work happening. It's incredible. So I just highly recommend that you go get that visual to go along with what you're about to say for Long Beach itself. But yeah, what's the destination like overall?
Yeah, so the Instagram page is Beach House WA, Beach House WA, and the destination, the Long Beach. Well, I grew up in Portland, and we would always drive to Cannon Beach before it became the destination it is now, and then sometimes Seaside, other times Lincoln City. So I spent all my time in the Oregon beaches, and I was going to, I think it was Seaside with my girlfriend, when we just couldn't find a room, we couldn't find a place to stay, and so her mom was like, "Well, why don't you go to Long Beach?" And so we found a place there. I'd never been there. I'd never even heard of it. And we get there, and I just fell in love with it. Like, I just thought, this is the coolest little town, because it still feels like a small beach town. All these other places have just kind of grown up, and they become like more like a little city than a small town, and all these, fancy boutiques everywhere. And not the, where you go in and get the little ice cream scoop, and you have the place of the saltwater taffy, and you have the go-karts, the basic small towny beach feel. That's Long Beach. It's still there. It's growing up a little, but it's still got that small town feel, which I love. And then on top of that, it's like 15 miles of uninterrupted beach, which means that you get to drive your car on the beach to a spot where no one else is, unload your pickup or Jeep Wrangler, is what I did, and you toss the wood out, you start a fire, you roast your hot dogs and drink your beer or pop or whatever, and you can spend the whole evening out there, which is what I love to do. That was like my favorite thing about going to the beach. And so for me, it was like a perfect fit, and I just thought, this this place is great. I really like this place. And that's why I wanted to end up getting a home to start a business there, was because I was like, I can see this becoming something that people really enjoy. And, it made sense to me. I still think the town's great.
Oh, 100%. And when I lived in Seaside, it was the same thing. Get after work, go grab a 6-pack of beer, grab the lawn chair, grab a pile of wood, some kindling, or maybe some newspaper that you found in from your recycling bin, and you go out there, and those sunsets, man, they're incredible. They're undescribable. Plus, especially in the summer, I gotta admit, I am not the biggest fan during the winter because it's or fall. It's a little cold, but. The summer is...
Well, your fire's not big enough, Will. That's the problem. See, you're not going to be cold if you have a big fire.
That's true, very true. I got to build a bigger fire next time.
Yes.
But the summer, man, it's so great. You could sleep out there. You could spend the whole evening, and just in awe of the beauty, the waves, the other fires. The 4th of July is amazing.
4th of July is crazy at Long Beach. It is insane. I've only done it once because it's like my most popular date to rent, right?
Yeah.
So but it is literally, you go out there and just as far as you can see, there are people just packed
everywhere.
It's like a traffic jam to get off the beach. On the actual beach, it's crazy. It is. Fireworks start like 3 hours before the sun even goes down.
100%.
And it's literally nonstop everywhere you look. I've never seen a spectacle like it before. It's amazing, especially in today's world where everything is so highly regulated.
Oh yeah.
To have such a free flowing, fun chaos, it's kind of cool to see that can still happen.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love it. For you now, I want to dive in. Like, so you talked about kind of like 4th of July being your craziest bookings for these types of properties, because they are like very high quality. Like when I'm telling all the listeners right now, if you please go check out the Instagram Beach House WA, you'll understand when you see it. But these are really high end quality properties all the way around. The amenities itself, the overall just flow and floor plan, everything you've done with them, they're just amazing. So what is this type of property rent out for? Low season, high season. What's been some of your experiences pre-COVID? Obviously, I want to talk pre-COVID, and then we'll go into post.
Right. Well, pre-COVID, I usually rent all my weekends. That's always been a given for most of my places, and that's great because even the low season, I'm renting my weekends. My goal was, I'm kind of taking that for granted almost. I'm like, okay, I can rent my weekends because there's always going to be people going to the beach, whether it's winter, fall, spring, whatever. And I want my places to be on the top. Like if you want to go to Long Beach, here are my places right here. You're going to want this before this, right? That was my goal. And then after that, my goal was, listen, I can rent my weekends. I want middle of the week, right? If anyone's going to the beach, I want them to consider my place. And if they can't go, it'll be because they can't afford it. It won't be because there's a place they'd rather be.
100%.
And so that's kind of how I approached it.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I was going to say the competition there is not like you're crushing it, in my opinion, compared to the competition in that area, just because I think, especially with beach towns, people get so used to, well, this is how it's been for the last 15 years. And we set our weekend rates and we call it good. Like they just kind of set it and they don't do much, but no, sorry. I think your competition in the area is very, like, there's nothing comparable, in my opinion, from what I've seen.
I mean, there are people that definitely are stepping up their game, I've noticed, since I've started doing this. But, I mean, I have not really taken a profit out of my places since I've started. I just keep on pouring it back in. It's the only way to describe it's a bit of a passion at this point. Like I have a vision of what these places can be. And for me, I just want to create that. I want to see it. It's so satisfying, like when you see this place transform into what you knew it always could be. It's great. I love that. And I love sharing it too, because, one of my favorite parts is when someone arrives, and then they'll text me and they'll be like, oh my God, this place is amazing. Like, we love this place. And, I love getting impromptu messages like that, because that is exactly what I want people to experience when they come to my place. Like, it's not just about, collecting some money and then goodbye, next person in. Not that many people get to go on vacation with their family. Like if they're anything like me, it's once a year, right? And then for some people, it's like this is all their extra money is going into something like this.
100%.
I want it to be amazing. I want them to have all these great memories, with their family and their friends. And so I do everything I can to help that be the case, whether it be like, I'll hundreds of board games, I try and keep them in, organize them into like, oh, here's the ones for families, here's one for adults, here's one for kids, just kind of put them in little, organized sections. I try and keep everything neat and orderly so you get there and it's not a feeling of chaos. There's all these little steps I'll go through, for kids that go there, kids like video games. And so I have a friend who's really, really into that stuff. And I just basically said, listen, give me the 3 best systems that represent like the different age groups, someone in my age group might like something like a N64, and someone a little younger, maybe like the Sony PlayStation 4 or whatever it was. And then give me the top 10 games for each console, and then I'll do an additional 30. So basically I try and hit each segment, whether it's the adult, the kid, the teenager. I want everyone to have something to do so that when they get there, there's like, yes, this place is awesome.
Well, I love that because you're adding extra amenities to your listings, which is great because that just is another value add to, of course, the guests and everything else. And it helps you on the algorithm side with Airbnb and Vrbo. I just think it's great. And of course you have the outdoor experiences where you get, a cornhole. I've seen the cornhole boards, and I think, are you doing horseshoes now, or are you getting,
that might be an ad. The only issue with horseshoes at the vacation rental is you're looking at that spike sticking out of the ground, right? And while I can have something go over that, someone can take it off, 100%. And then their kids are running around trips, and then they're also throwing horseshoes, which is another issue. So I love horseshoes, and there is such a thing as like, you're too focused on liability and you forget to let people have fun. So it could be something I add, but I love cornhole because you're throwing beanbags, and not only that, it's a fun game that everyone loves to do. It seems to be something that people really like. So one thing that I'm doing that's different from what I used to do is I actually went to a welding shop by my house and got them specs for cornhole, and I had one made out of stainless steel.
Oh wow!
And so then I made a court, and I had it poured. I got my contractor out there, and we got all the professional, like a tournament specs. And so we poured it out of concrete. We had the stainless steel thing permanently in the ground, so now you can go out there and you have in the middle of your lawn this cornhole court, stuff like that you don't really see, it's not around typically. I like doing stuff like that. I like thinking out of the box. It's fun for me, and bonus for people that show up and they're not expecting stuff like that.
100%. And you just took the words out of my mouth. You're creating a destination. Really, you're getting them so much opportunity to never leave the place at all. Like only
people have told me that. They're like, that we showed up and then we barely even went to the beach. Like we just spent all the time at the house. We thought we were going to go like to restaurants, but your kitchen's so packed with stuff. We just ended up cooking the whole time, So I get that a lot.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that is why I think like this is for all the listeners, especially in the vacation rental space, like need to understand this, that this is what it's supposed to be like. That not grant, like I can't, badmouth anybody that just, signs properties, does what they do, doesn't, do all these extra add-ons. But the goal for the true hospitality, the essence of it is creating moments and experiences. And some that should, they don't even have to go to the beach. Like that's the crazy thing. They're there for the beach and then they end up staying at the property the whole time and never leaving. That is some powerful stuff. Like that's your passion and you're pouring into, and the creativity and everything like that. Just really that's such a huge, I don't know. I don't even have, I'm geeking out and getting too excited, but it's just, that's what it's about, man. That's like, I just love that story because when you meet every expectation and exceed it, and it ends up changing their whole trip and their experience, especially like you said, if they're a family that only gets to do this maybe once a year.
Yeah.
That's some powerful stuff. That's really powerful. So,
and what a cool way to make a living, right? If you think about it,
100%.
like my job is to create amazing experiences for families, right? For people to come and have a great time and relax and make great memories. Like that is such a wonderful way to make a living, and like with anything else, obviously, for people listening thinking, oh yeah, that sounds amazing, I want to do this. It's also an incredible amount of work. Like you have to know so many things about so many things, and then you have to deal with the inevitable jerk that goes into your place, treats it. I mean, you go to such lengths to create a beautiful spot, and they will trash it, and then they will complain that you're charging them for it, and then leave you a bad review. I mean,
yeah,
you got to deal with this stuff, and it's part of the deal. But I would say a majority of the people, probably over 90%, are really respectful and appreciate what it is that I do, and that definitely makes it worth my while.
100%. I love that. And so now I want to get into now COVID time. We talked about pre-COVID. So
yeah,
post-COVID, these are great properties for, I think, for people to, one, not have to worry about hotels that are crowded and all the other stuff is very, I think, essential right now for, especially type of properties that you have. What are some tools in your tool belt that help you, whether it's, communications, pricing, anything like that? What are some things that you've implemented in order to help? Because you're running this pretty much by yourself. I'm assuming you have cleaners and other people like that on
oh yes.
Okay,
yes.
perfect.
I couldn't absolutely do that without and I have a great house cleaning staff. I have two different people that I work with, and I have a good relationship with both of them. I mean,
awesome.
They are my eyes and ears, when they come in and out, and I'm just so appreciative of them.
Yeah.
They really, they understand my passion, right? And they get that, it's not just about running in, clean it, and running out. I want you to go through everything, make sure that, everything is just so for people when they arrive. And I really appreciate the people I'm working with. And then, I have my contractor who has wonderful eye for detail, and his quality is just second to none. And he knows also how I feel about stuff. And he knows that it's not about getting in there and slamming it out. No, if you have to take a couple extra hours to do it right, I'm not going to complain about that. Do it right. So definitely couldn't do this by myself. And then tools that I've implemented recently, Hostfully is something that I started because I started my own website for direct bookings to become a little less reliant on VRBO and Airbnb. Be nice to and it actually, I don't make any more money directly booking. I actually, the person that books with me saves money because I don't charge the extra fees that the webs do. But it's nice to have more control over my contact with the guests, because VRBO and Airbnb kind of are restrictive. So Hostfully has been kind of a nice little help in that regard, because I have my own website, but then I have a button that clicks them over to Hostfully, which then I can have them just, pay with a credit card and book like you would on any other site, but I still have all the control in terms of, they don't dictate to me like Airbnb and VRBO what I can and cannot do, which that's great. That's important to me. So, and I also used Hostfully's guidebook recently, kind of filled that out. And so I send that to people when they book, and it just kind of gives them a curated selection of businesses and attractions in the area that they can go see. And that's nice because I always get those questions, and now I just, I send them a link and they got, it's all the information there, and it's kind of a nice little tool bag that I haven't had before.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think it's so cool, and I think it goes into, and when we first started talking because of the Destination Air Award. I think is when we connected on Instagram, and we were talking about the anticipation of, the definition of it is people that are wired to create remarkable experiences that are anticipated and shared. And that, I think the guidebook touch gives that opportunity for your guests to anticipate their stay, and then they get to share it with our whole group. Like, hey, look at that, like all the stuff that we're going to be able to do when we're staying with Beach House Wa, and we have this amazing property. Like, this is just so cool. And I think it gets that anticipation, that hype really built up, which is awesome. And I'm pretty sure you get to use that to your full advantage, of course, with maybe even local partnerships or any other businesses that you love. How often do you get to even stay at your properties? I'm just kind of curious. How booked out are you?
I am probably around 95% occupancy at the moment, which is not usual. It certainly has become busier the longer I've been in business as word of mouth gets out. I have a lot of repeat business, which is, great. It's a sign that you're doing something right.
Yeah.
But I think at this moment, it's the fact of COVID, right? Everyone wants to get out of their house. People are they're thinking about going to a house rather than a hotel. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of people that can't fly and go to their fancy vacations that they normally go. So they look for something else. So I'm definitely benefiting from that, being in between two big markets, Portland, Seattle. And so I'm not really getting to stay at my homes at all, which is okay in that, it's wonderful for business and that's great. But I like to go stay because I get a feel for what's missing or what needs to change. There's nothing like staying in a house for a couple of days to understand its needs. And so I've been on the phone with my housekeepers and contractor, had them go and check on the home, go through the check. I just don't want it to basically run people in, run people out, and then just let it go down, because anyone who has a home knows there's always something to fix and do. But then now try doing that with 4 or 5 homes, and then people in and out all the time. It creates it is a challenge. It really is. And I want people to have a great experience, but sometimes I got to have someone show up while they're there to do something. It's just that this is the only way I can get it in, because with a small town, sometimes you're just lucky to have someone show up, let alone at a certain time. Yeah. So yeah, it is its own special little challenge.
Hey, challenge accepted, though, it sounds like on your end. So I think that's great. Tony, I have one question for you. It's for the people listening. If you can give 2 pieces of advice for people that are wanting to do the same thing that you are in their own market, whether it's in Washington, Oregon, California, Florida, you name it, wherever. What were 2 things that you would give them to really say, if you do these 2 things, I think you'll have great chances of success?
Well, you got to know that there's going to be financially, there's going to be good times, and there's also going to be bad times. So don't get so hyped up about what you want to do that you think about it in terms of, this is how much I can make, and then you spend accordingly, because it's not always going to be good times. And if you set your system up for those good times and bad times come, you could lose all of your work, all of your money. And so be conservative. Don't jump into something that's ideal just because, that's what's in your head. Buy something that will take less stress, financial stress off you, and then make it ideal with time. I think that would be the most important thing, piece of advice I could give you, because it's stressful, and money is super stressful. And if you put yourself in something where you can barely afford it, man, it's not worth it. It's just not worth the stress that's going to bring. And then number 2, why are you doing it? Don't lose sight of why you were doing this, because if it's something that you're doing for your family and then making money on the side, then focus on the family. Because if it all becomes business and getting people in there, you're going to find that when you go there, you're so stressed about other stuff that you don't even have family time. People talk to me all the time about getting a vacation. I'm like, oh yeah, I'd like to do that. And I'm like, okay, just keep in mind that it's no longer going to be a vacation when you go there. Like that has come and gone. It's a whole brand new. You're going to go there and you're going to look around and you're going to see stuff that you need to do, and it's not going to be a break. So my second piece of advice is for people, if they want a vacation, don't do a vacation home / business. It does not work. It's either one or the other. And but no one ever listens to me about that anyway.
Oh, that's That's awesome. Well, Toby, my man, it's been so good to catch up with you, and I wish we had more time, but I just think that what you're doing is incredible, and it really does show. I think everything that you're doing, like you can see the hard work and the attention to detail and everything just goes into it. It is working and it's happening, and you're building something really cool. So I just want to say thank you again for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your story, and for letting us to kind of geek out a little bit and talk about, something that's, I don't think many people are getting to do. So it's really cool to hear your thoughts and your story. And, I just want to say thank you so much for that. It's been a
thanks for having me on. This is really fun. And I enjoy talking about this kind of stuff.
Perfect. Well, maybe we'll have to do a part 2 after you get a couple more properties and those cabins and stuff like that. I think that would be sweet, especially to do it behind the scenes and see what goes on in the mind of Toby Friesen when you're not working your other 2 jobs. And
yes, I look forward to having that conversation. I can barely imagine what that would be like. But yes, both me and you are looking forward to that moment.
Yes. Awesome. Well, you heard it, Slick Talkers. Everything that we've talked about will be in the show notes. Toby's Instagram, website, you name it, is going to be there. So go ahead, check it out. Thank you so much for tuning in to Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Thank you so much for listening. We love your support and want to provide the best we can to all our listeners. So please find us online, social media, and on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast. I could not be more thankful that you chose my podcast to listen to today. Now, I also couldn't be more thankful for the amazing partners and sponsors I have for the show. We have Hostfully.com, NoiseAware.com, and Safely.com, and you can check out more about my sponsors on the Slick Talk website, where I have the sponsors and partners page. Now, thank you for tuning in, and enjoy another episode. What's up, everybody? If you've gotten this far into the episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast, then you are amazing, and thank you so much for tuning in. We want to send you 2 places really quickly. If you can, check out the show notes and click the hospitality.fm link. Check out all of our other shows on the podcast network. And don't forget, if you have someone that you want to hear on the podcast, then fill out the guest fill out form so that way we can get them on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy another episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast.